Fast Forward Thinking, Innovations and Strategies in Ad-Supported Streaming. Please welcome TheWrap's co-executive editor, Adam Chitwood.
You guys ready to talk fast? I'm Adam Chitwood, co-executive editor of TheWrap. Let's bring out my lovely panelists. Get into it. All right, and as you guys sit down, I'll have you introduce yourselves as we dig into this discussion about fast streaming.
All right, I am Val Kaplan. I am the Global SVP of Marketing for Pluto TV.
I'm Patrick Courtney, Head of Streaming and Business Development for Fuse Media. We're a global entertainment company that reaches a young adult audience with inclusive entertainment.
I'm Lindsay Stewart. I'm the Vice President of Fast Ad Revenue Strategy at AMC Networks.
I'm Jen Vox, and I oversee content acquisition and programming for the Roku channel.
Hello, I'm Beth Anderson. I work at BBC Studios. I'm our General Manager of Fast Channels and SVP of Fast and VOD Sales. Basically putting British shows on the internet.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Obviously, streaming is changing every day. First question I want to ask, very simple, is fast the future? Don't all answer at once.
I'll kick us off.
Go on.
I think fast is now. 2023 alone, it's projected to reach $6 billion in revenue, double that over the next few years. I know at Pluto TV, we've seen incredible growth and continue to. So yes, it is the future, but it's already here now, and it's happening so rapidly. We're already in our moment.
+1 on all of that. Sorry, Patrick. But also, I don't think you can look at fast in isolation. I think it is part of a flywheel media landscape. We're seeing a rebirth of windows, but not necessarily windows in the more traditional sense of you start with a premium window and then you echo down to a free model. I think it is incredibly accessible, and it is not it's not in its finished state yet. I think the worst thing to do would be to categorize fast as an EPG. That is part of the way in which we see it today, but that's not where we're going.
Yeah, I would agree. As a company that we've got 2 pay TV networks, fast channels, subscription service, it's very quickly become a leg of our stool for how we look at ourselves as a future-forward, modern entertainment company. So it is part of the future. It is not, I wouldn't say it's the future. It's part of whatever the future will look like.
Well, I wanted to dig into this notion because we have our SVOD services, growing ad tiers. You now have fast, which is free. There's this notion that are we inventing cable again? And I know you guys all have strong feelings on this. So I wanted to kind of open it up to the floor to tell me, are we just reinventing cable again? Or why aren't we?
I think for us, we want to give people, our viewers, the content, like what they want to watch, when they want to watch it, and how they want to watch it. And linear is still a very strong value proposition. So folks, they've come home from their work, they're now in the office maybe 3 days a week, they've had a busy day, they want to come back and lean back and have programming presented to them. So that is our focus for fast.
Yeah, linear never went away. The idea of paying an enormous sum of money every month for linear has become less popular as we've moved to a model where we look to an audience to choose the type of ways in which they want to engage with programming, the time they want to spend with it, and the devices they want to interact with. So it was never a bad idea to have passionate TV aficionados curate custom channels for audiences to say, if you like this, try this channel. That was always a good idea. I mean, honestly, I don't see that much difference between fast and radio. It's this idea of having someone put the effort in. And I think with the age of SVOD, we put so much pressure on audiences to tell us what they wanted to watch. And we took away some of that finesse of saying, oh, actually, I know some things you might like. And recommendations are really valid. And I think, we, especially as content owners, we can play that role as a curate and a docent to go through what is now an enormously big task of how do you choose what to watch. There's way too much choice.
I would say for us, cable continues to be an incredibly important part of our distribution. Our cable viewers are very important fans to us and a core part of who we are. Fast is really complementary to cable distribution, not meant to be a replacement for. It's really just part of our larger dynamic distribution ecosystem, similar to the rest of the panelists. I think it's just part of how we make sure to reach the viewers where they are choosing to engage with content as consumption is evolving.
But one thing to say on are we redeveloping cable is that by 2027, 117 million US households will be watching premium long-form streaming TV. 180 million households in the US will be consuming ad-supported video on demand. So there is something to be said for the value that this form of media, particularly fast, but also its companion, AVOD, can bring to the advertising market. If you want to develop your brand and make sure your brand is understood by an audience, then fast does replicate some of that value that you did see in the traditional cable world.
Yeah, I think at Pluto, when we really created the category almost 10 years ago now, that's exactly what we were trying to do, is have a little bit of the best of both worlds. And the part of TV that was never broken, that everybody loved, the ease of it, the comfort, the channels, the variety of content, but also very much the curation, preserving that part of it, but taking that pre-existing business model and evolving it for a modern digital streaming era and a modern digital streaming consumer. And I think that's part of why this category has seen such success and so much growth. And we actually have a great campaign that we launched a couple of days ago that is all about that. And we really lean into this notion of TV the way it should be. And again, the free part, the easy part, the human curation, but also the digital footprint and being available across so many platforms and distributors, and really, letting audiences have their cake and eat it too a little bit.
Well, I mean, obviously, one of the biggest challenges you guys all have is brand awareness, consumer awareness. How do you get people to know that your FAST channels exist? There was this explosion of content. People are seemingly contracting. Is the zombie apocalypse still off, or are we good?
This is the real one.
Is this a real one? What are kind of some of the innovations and strategies you guys are using to make consumers aware, not only that you exist, but also what you have and what you have to offer, when it seems like people are trying to cut back and maybe, it's too many streaming services, there are too many shows, I don't have time to catch up. What are things that you guys have seen that have been working for you in order to make the consumer aware of what you have?
I feel like that's a question for the marketing person.
I'll start it. Yeah, as the marketer, that's exactly the inspiration behind our latest campaign, which is really leaning into the human element of it. And it was inspired by the real humans who program Pluto TV. And of course, we leverage machine learning and algorithms to enhance that human programming, but there's something irreplaceable about fandom. And not only is it the humans behind the experience, but it makes it a more human experience for the audience who's watching it. I also think, particularly with FAST, if you think about SVOD, so much of that viewing is often title driven. I want to watch show XYZ, where do I find it? You search on whatever platform you watch on, and then you go to whatever streamer to watch it. And it's a very transactional exchange. And what we know from all of our audience research and insights and feedback is that more often than not, people come to Pluto TV because they want to feel a certain way. And so as a marketer, there's so much emotional richness there to work with, and we want to lean into that, and we want to embrace that in all of our marketing, instead of just, kind of reverting to that more commoditized transactional experience. And not only does it help drive recognition and emotional connection with the audience, but it actually helps the audience solve for that overwhelm of choice and optionality that they have out there to choose from. You want to feel a certain way, so you come to Pluto to find that.
Yeah, I think I completely agree, and we work closely with our platform partners, like those sitting here next to me, to help merchandise the channels, to also help support a longer-term brand positioning for what you're going to get when you tune into our channels. And back to what you were saying, Val, like the feeling that you're going to get. And I think decision fatigue is a real thing, and people just want sometimes to just, turn something on, and they've got their favorite set of channels to just sit back and relax. And it's about educating our audience to know that we have this certain set of channels where you will come for something great, and it's super well curated, and we do a great job at marketing and merchandising that, and it's just a great experience. It's a different experience than signing on and knowing exactly what you want to watch and finding it and turning it on and that sort of thing. It's a different need state, but it's still a very important need state that a lot of people have.
I think it's also not, it's not static. If you were in the pay TV world, you would be dealing with very long-term carriage deals. You'd have to have at least a 5-year business strategy of what you were doing with the channel proposition. A lot of the channels that we have, I'm looking particularly to Patrick and Lindsay here as well, are iterative. And so we will look and see live data about how our channels are meeting the audience moment and then change that channel proposition according to what audiences hit. And from the platform side of things, on the Pluto and Roku side, we do see different audiences gravitate toward different content and even at different times of day, but we don't necessarily create a monolithic channel stack. So if it is something that is really working on Roku and there is a completely different audience group that is finding Pluto, then we will help and guide a scheduling protocol accordingly. And that could sometimes mean that a channel will change. We had a BBC Home channel that we evolved into a BBC Home and Garden channel because we realized the gardening programming was really hitting a moment, or the type of Top Gear show episodes that play on one service might be different to the shows that we push on another one because it meets a different audience state. And it's the beauty of having a channel that is on the internet. It is something that is much more accessible to change, and we should meet it. We should meet that moment with humility and grace and curiosity, because what we have today, if someone asked me if I was having the same 12 channels that I have today in 5 years' time, I would say, good Lord, no. I hope not, because there's so much more I have to say and introduce with the content that we have. And we're all sitting on these enormous, beautiful catalogues that we want to introduce at different times to different moods on different services.
Well, that's what I'm curious about, the innovation strategies involved in programming, because from my outsider perspective, it feels like SVOD or linear, the strategy seems to be everyone likes this, let's do more of that. Bring me the next Game of Thrones. Whereas with FAST, it seems like it's someone must like this, let's try it. Is that an accurate assessment? How are you guys developing programming strategies for the channels that you have?
Well, first off, the zombies.
Yeah.
No, it's not spaghetti stick. I mean, there is definitely, I think we lean into where our strengths are, where we're passionate about the type of programming that we have. I'm never going to give you a 23-episode season. That's not the way that BBC shows are made. Typically, the people who are in BBC shows come from a theatrical background, a theatre background, where people are only available for shorter periods of time. That's why you see people like Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman in literally everything. Seriously, name the last time you didn't see one of them in something. They're in everything. Because they can be, because we're not committing to that. So because we don't necessarily have one show, with the exception of things like Antiques Roadshow and Top Gear, where you do have just enormous amounts of volume, we do have to think about what it is that we're hitting with those moments. And that will, I'm sure you'll get a completely different answer from Patrick or Lindsay on this.
Yeah, I think for us, it really is looking at the data, looking at the evolution of viewership within the FAST space. Since we started airing FAST channels in 2020, we've grown from having 3 channels to 19 channels in market. And that's really come from looking at what people are viewing, how people are responding to it, how we can tap into the breadth of IP that we have within the company, and connecting the right consumers with that content across our platform partnerships. As Beth noted, different platforms just curate naturally slightly different audiences, and figuring out what works there and how we can have the right channel package available with different partners, I think, is a really key part of continuing to grow the brands. But within the programming itself, it's really looking day over day at the data, what's working, how we can create a viewing experience that really brings people in and amplifies that lean back binge viewing experience that I think FAST can really offer to consumers, of not having to engage every half hour in a choice of what they want to watch next.
Yeah, and I think from Roku's point of view, working with these fantastic partners, and Pluto as well is a fantastic partner on platform and in the channel. We're at 455 channels, and so what we're doing is looking for, programmers who want to lean in, who understand their audience, what they want to say to their audience, but also discoverability is key, and it's a very crowded environment. So we do a lot of focus on that, machine learning, on categories, on working with our partners to have a very clear channel name in the thumbnail, because if you're scrolling through the electronic programming guide, you want to grab someone's attention, and what's great is the name is everything, and the key art is everything, and if it's too small or too busy, people are just going to scroll right by it. So like BBC Nature, that's a very strong brand.
You mentioned human curated platform. Obviously, AI is a massive topic here at TheGrill. How does a human curated platform work in 2023?
I think it's the blend of both, right? I think to me, for many years actually in marketing, I've always said data can enhance and it can optimize, but it doesn't create. And I kind of think of AI as a similar parallel. It's always based off of something. And so I think when we think about how we want to leverage AI technology and machine learning, it is to amplify that human taste and talent, and there is an art to programming and an art to curation. So we use all of that to make it better and more scalable and more efficient and more responsive, but not to replace the human element behind it.
I'm also curious, just from a consumer perspective, how have tastes changed just in this year alone? And then how has that reflected upon you and your strategies towards building out programming, marketing these fast platforms?
I'm not sure whether tastes have changed, but more people are aware that fast is available to them. And that's through the amazing work of device partners who are making it easier and easier to find these interfaces. And the familiarity of an EPG, even though I have some feelings about it, mean that you can dive in very quickly, which means that we have more people. The danger, the alluring danger, is that you end up doing something that is a gen pop draw. And actually the specificity, which is what Jen was speaking to just now, is really the gold dust. It's really about saying, I don't necessarily want to hit everyone who comes onto this experience, but I want the people who find this to love it and come back. Retention is such an interesting model in a linear world where it's a skewed way of looking at appointment to view, because it might be something that is inherently a catalogue show. I have a show airing from 1963. How do you do appointment to view in that? But there is a moment that you are, especially in our remote culture, in our remote society, that you're sharing with other humans and finding fandom with that. It's not about appealing to everyone, it's appealing to multiple types of groups. And what's lovely is that as more audiences are coming into this, there are more groups, more fandoms, more joy for discovering things, and more access to audiences that wouldn't actually have even been served in a cable universe, which tended to be a slightly more elite form of media just by the cost of entry. So we're able to create what I think is the most equitable form of media in a generation. And that means not appealing to everyone, it means appealing to specific people and recognizing that more and more people are coming in every day, and you have lots of opportunity to innovate and curate and create.
Well, I mean, advertising, it's right there in the title of FAST. I was wondering if you guys could talk a little bit about the strategies and innovations involved in advertising on FAST.
So for us, that was the part of the reason we got into FAST early on in 2018, was because we saw that there was a linear-like experience that was ad-supported, and it was a business that Fuse at the time didn't have any part in. But if you see where that was kind of moving, it seemed like that would be an obvious place where we would want to try to focus. And as the viewership there has gotten to scale, we've seen a lot of the demand that has come through in traditional pay TV linear and is now kind of moving into connected TV, and it's spanning both of those. So that's now become a very big part of our overall advertising business. When we go out and do our upfronts, we sell it as though it's all, it's depending on what you're looking for, pay TV, fast, subscription, ad-supported, digital, social, all of that. But it's become a very big piece of it. I would say that it's still nascent and it's still evolving, and I don't think the ad experience is I think everybody up here would agree, it's not the best that it could be. I think there's also some value capture that maybe is misaligned with the consumer, and I think that's across the entire entertainment industry, which is a little bit why things are a little in flux. And I think it was James Dolan was saying that monetization models are in disarray, because I think that there's the expectations from the consumers that maybe aren't quite right-sized to what the offering actually is. And so I think with FAST, that's one of the bigger areas of focus over probably the next 12 to 24 months is how to improve the monetization there, how to make the revenue support that overall ecosystem in a way that's healthy for both those who are bringing the content, the platforms that are delivering it, and the audiences who are viewing it.
And I think when you contrast that with all of the price hikes that feel continuous across SVOD services, it's becoming increasingly difficult for consumers to sustain that ultimate bundle or package of streamers. And so I don't think FAST or the ad-supported model will replace that, but it's the perfect supplement and complement to those 2 or 3 core services that audiences are paying for.
First, I think FAST really provides an opportunity to just amplify the partnerships we have with advertisers, to find new connection points with them, with older seasons of content and new seasons of content on expanded audiences on more platforms as we continue to increase our distribution.
I'd say we're at the birth of what monetization really looks like for this business model and for all business models in the flywheel. We're already seeing ads being enabled behind the paywall as much as they are in front of them. And I think, this idea that an ad is the tax that you pay in between the program you watch is sort of missing the value that an ad can bring to a consumer. A good ad is the reason, the Super Bowl stops so that ads can play. That's phenomenal. There is an incredible amount of creativity in the ad space and disruptive power and the ability to have ads inside the programming as much as outside, as long as you're very clear with what you're doing in that space. I see no reason why FAST can't become long-form TikTok. I think that social media is light years ahead of where the traditional TV business is in terms of integrating the ad model into the consumer experience. But this is the new frontier, and I'm super excited about the creativity that can come into the space from an advertiser perspective.
I think Comedy Central now runs movies, they call them movies with breaks, to give people, reintroduce the consumer to the concept of commercials.
Yeah.
What are those relationships like with those ad partners too, of how are they feeling about FAST and the future of FAST and the growing monetization of it and getting through those challenges together?
Well, to Beth's point, I think there is a lot of room for innovation as to how advertising looks and feels in an environment like that. I think that it is a very traditional and sort of well-paved kind of model in the way that that business is done and how advertising is transacted and traded and created and all of that. So I don't anticipate that the spots and dots, so to speak, is like in any way going away anytime soon. But things like branded content and figuring out how you can move the conversation upstream and having more direct conversations with brands about being creative and doing that sort of stuff, I think that can improve the overall ad experience, as well as find new ways to monetize across the platform. That's not just stuffing more ads into the stream.
How do the consumers feel about it? I'm curious, you guys kind of looking into consumer research of how many ads is too many, where do the ad breaks go?
I think it's such an honest form of exchange. We have 20 years of putting the control of a consumer's wallet into their hands. And they know that there is an exchange. I give you value, you give me something. And when I don't give you upfront value, then I understand that there will be advertising. I understand that there is an economy around this business, and there are people who deserve to be rewarded for the creativity that they've put into this space. Not us, the actual people who make the shows. But I think that therefore it's something a little less deceptive than some of the other forms of advertising that we've seen in the past. And audiences are very tolerant of it. They're very savvy. And we don't find it to be too disruptive. Having said that, I think FAST does tend to have shorter ad pods. And I don't think necessarily we would advocate for massively increasing those. It's more about finding different routes for monetization. And that could be anything from virtual product placement to branded integrations of a channel itself that works with a brand and how they can present their value and how do you reach an addressable audience. Well, you do it in a way that marries great content to a great platform to your great brand and build it into an immersive experience beyond the time tax of an ad pod.
I think our CEO, his vision is that all TV and therefore TV advertising will be streamed, and we are the #1 connected TV platform in the US, Canada, and Mexico. And so as a result, we're hyper-focused on the experience, and the Roku channel's value proposition is half the ad load as per linear TV, because I think that was a challenge in linear as well. So just making sure that it's a good experience, working with our partners to understand where the ad breaks are, that they're a good experience for, they're not like in the middle of, you know, a key dramatic moment. So just really focused on the consumer and what works for them.
Oh yeah, I mean, all of our programming is natively seamless in the UK. We don't have any ads, and so every single ad break is painstakingly handcrafted to make sure that we avoid moments like that disruption.
I'd say, too, the natural growth we've seen in FAST, the increased discovery and engagement of content speaks volumes to the consumer tolerance of ads in the space. And I think it just is really creating an opportunity for new ways and price flexibility for consumers to engage with our content. I think similar to how we recently launched an ad-supported version of our AMC Plus product, FAST gives viewers a way to engage with premium AMC content in an environment that happens to be ad-supported, but if this is the best consumption point for them, it's a relationship that they're willing to engage with us on. And I think everything that we've mutually built together with platforms, with other content providers, is creating an ecosystem that people are interested in. The content and the way we've all managed to curate it so carefully and really create an experience that people want to be a part of helps balance the fact that it is interrupted by ads and supported by advertisement revenue.
Yeah, and I think to your point earlier, Lindsay, about the ecosystem, it's not just about the individual ad break and how much does that resonate with the viewer, but it's how does that interact with the combination of touch points that's happening across the broader ecosystem that we're all a part of.
Yeah, I mean, most FAST channels, I mean, the companies you work for are part of broader ecosystems, like you said. Are you seeing that then drive SVOD subscriptions, or are you seeing like a consumer takes a bite of a Discovery of Witches or Interview with a Vampire and then decides to sign up for AMC Plus? Is that something that you're seeing a lot
I
of?
think there's a natural synergy between different consumption points of content. We have different windows of content within our FAST space relative to SVOD and linear, and we've played around with programming. We have a lot of past seasons. We'll run catch-up leading into new season premiere. We've started experimenting with recent windows of new premiere content in close proximity to when we have linear and SVOD releases. And I think that over time does create a situation where you start breaking down some of those walls, and consumers are really aware that there's content available in different touch points, and depending on how much they want and when they want and the control they want, they have the option of kind of sliding between those. And I think it even goes back to the marketing and how you make people aware. For us, when you're leading with marketing around content, making sure that people know the multifaceted ways they can engage with that content, I think will naturally, over time, underscore to them that they might be watching here today, but maybe tomorrow, if they want more of that, our linear stream might not be programming it in that moment, and they might port over to another distribution point to continue watching. Or they might stay because they love what we have on the channel.
See, that's so great. It's the beautiful interface between subscription acquisition and audience retention, and recognizing that because an audience member wants to consume with you on a free model, that doesn't necessarily devalue their importance. And you can have the ability to push to a subscriber acquisition model, but having that as the one-dimensional final goal for everything is very limiting, because you will ultimately find people who just don't like that subscription model, but they will want to engage with your programming. We have a BritBox Mysteries channel, which has some of the content that we have on our BritBox SVOD service, and we see audiences maybe who are engaging in that SVOD experience, and also people who are not, but still want to engage with that programming, and are very high retention in that model. So I always say, free doesn't mean cheap. There's incredible premium value in free access to your programming, and the amount of access that we're building is incredible in comparison to kind of being so stuck on a hill and saying you have to pay in order to come in the door. You're missing so much opportunity to learn and develop new programming strategies.
What do the demographics look like for you guys for FAST? And then what innovations are you using to either lean into maybe the demos that are more prone to fast or expand beyond that demographic.
I don't believe in a demo.
Elaborate.
I don't.
Love
Well,
to
so I don't. I think that my age and my gender are the least interesting things about me. I think that, you know, you said it so beautifully earlier about the feelings that you have when you're watching shows. I think that you can be in a mood to consume something where someone else is editorially selecting, and you can be in a mood where you want to find a specific show, or you just have an itch to scratch where you want to watch Back to the Future. We're talking about it behind the stage. But you can be all of those things in one person. I love young adult novels. I am clearly not a young adult. I'm barely an adult, but I am also not young. But you know, you can be multiple facets. And so gearing our programming strategy around what someone looks like or what you know, household income they have is sort of missing the point. We can all have different drivers, different fascinations. And you can be multiple things to multiple people at different times. And so what mood you're in is much more interesting. People who are engaging with our BBC Earth channel may just want to chill out and watch some really cool animals do great things.
Yeah, I think we look at need states too, and what role is the content playing on the service. If you want news and information and weather, we'll have that for you. If you want to lean back and watch a pet channel like I did the other day, then I will watch that. So it's like understanding your audience for what problem you're trying to solve, because essentially they're taking this piece of content and agreeing to spend the next half hour to 2 hours, 4 hours with it. So you want to make sure that you're able to super serve them that need state they need to fill.
I'd say we do focus a little bit more on communities and specifically underserved communities, and that's in part because that's what we do as a company with Fuse, and our pay TV networks are the same way, and that we're a diverse-owned media business, and that's why advertisers are coming to us, is to reach those audiences. So our channels like Shades of Black, Latino Vibes, Out TV Proud, they do serve specific communities through culturally relevant content. And we think that there is a space for curating that and offering premium content in a way that nobody else can, that identifies with that community or that audience. And then we have a really healthy marriage of that and the audience that shows up for that, and then the advertisers who are trying to reach that audience as well.
I think a lot of it is creating authenticity in the channel brands that you're putting forward, making sure if you're building it around a fan base of a specific IP or for a specific demographic, that you are really being mindful that that is, as we've all been discussing, a premium experience for that audience, not chasing what we might assume a certain demographic or a certain fan base wants, but really responding to looking at the data, looking at the programming, looking at the competitive set, and seeing how we can continue to make sure that we're really bringing relevant content forward to audiences. And over time, yes, that does probably break out into different over-indexes of certain demos that you can align with advertisers, but it really starts upstream in making sure that you're really focused on super serving fan bases and just being authentic in how you're curating that.
And it's not a mature space. Like it's
Yeah.
still new audiences are coming online to FAST all the time. And so I think being adaptable and understanding how those viewership patterns are changing and who is watching and where, and I think what you said earlier, like different need states. If you're just turning it on because your OEM happens to just put it in front of you when you turn it on, versus if you dip into an actual app to watch it, different need states in that way. All of that's still evolving and changing, and so you can't really say one thing for certain, because every couple of months there's like little trends and signals that are changing a little bit and evolving.
So between need states and fandoms, I don't think there's much more I can add, but I will share that one of my favorite fun facts that I've learned here in my time at Pluto is when we do a bunch of audience testing and research, Gen Z actually thinks the EPG is really innovative. So they're like, what's this new technology?
We are out of time. I want to do a speed round. I want you each to tell me one of your favorite FAST channels. Start at the end.
Can I say my own?
Yes, please do.
Well, I love BBC Earth. I think it's just bliss. It's nature, and it goes from fluffy animals to incredible landscapes. And when we don't have an ad playing, it has a little yogic move where you can breathe in and out while you see amazing surroundings.
I have to say I love all my babies equally, but we love our Rich Eisen channel, which is our sports talk channel?
It is a tough choice. I'd say similarly, we really are passionate about all of the channels we've curated. So it's difficult to pick one, but I'm very excited about, we just the other week launched a Scares by Shudder horror content channel. Shudder is one of our favorite household subscription apps in my house. So I think really being able to just have that constant streaming experience of the horror films is exciting to me personally.
It's a tough question. I mean,
I could say
it's-
one of, you don't have to pick the one. I will talk to your bosses, I will tell them you're not doing that.
I
Singing.
will use Lindsay's tactic. I will say, so the most recent channel that we are working with, El Rey, that's a really strong brand, and we're now working with them to help improve the viewership, the performance, the evolution of what that brand looks like in a fast environment. So we're super excited about that.
All right, mine is Pluto Picks. It's the ultimate staff picks experience, and it reminds me of Blockbuster on a Friday night, minus the trauma of your VHS being out.
Or you get the tape and it's not rewound. Oh, man. Thank you guys so much. This has been super fascinating. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.